Porsche has manufactured some extraordinary cars during its lifetime. And the 968 behind me has been kind of lost in translation. My name is Osama and today on Daily Drives, I'm going to be explaining why the 968 is the best vintage Porsche you could buy.
Do you want to be a bad man? Yes, you do. Do you want to taste sweet salvation underneath the summer moon? Do you need another hand now? Yes, you do. Go see Miss Joseph down on Columbus Avenue.
Now, before we get to this car, we got to understand how Porsche got to building it. I mean, it's so different than a 911. Why is that? So in the 1960s, Porsche and Volkswagen were looking to develop new sports cars, an entry-level 911-912 replacement for Porsche, and a range-topping vehicle to replace Volkswagen's Karmann Ghia. At the time, the majority of Volkswagen's development work was handled by Porsche, and as part of an agreement that dated back to Porsche's founding, Volkswagen had one last development contract with Porsche to fulfill said agreement, and thus the 914 was born. So the initial plan was to sell two different cars with two different badges, the 4-cylinder being sold by Volkswagen and the 6-cylinder flat 6 being sold by Porsche. However, this didn't appeal to Porsche. They were worried it would devalue its name in the North American market, and therefore they were both sold as Porsches. But tragically, in 1968, CEO of Volkswagen Heinrich Nordhoff passed away, and his successor, Kurt Lotz, did not acknowledge the verbal agreement between Volkswagen and Porsche, as he was not affiliated with the dynasty. So the deal fell apart. This hindered the project greatly, and the car was more expensive than initially planned. The 4-cylinder sold well, however the 6 barely scratched 3,500 cars, as it was almost the same price as the 912 that it was supposed to replace. And once again, it was time to change the Porsche entry model. But this time they tried to make it a bit more affordable than the whole debacle with Volkswagen. In came the 924. However, the 924 was also being developed before Kurt Lotz got into the mix. So things were going to be difficult again for Porsche. And on top of that, the oil crisis hit and many regulations changed. This meant that the 914 was discontinued before the 924 went on sale, forcing Porsche to reintroduce the 912 as a 911E for an extra year in the North American market. Volkswagen had steered away to create a new model called the Scirocco, and the Project 425, the 924 concept car that was supposed to be co-developed by the two brands, well, had to be bought back by Porsche. Now this was a problem because they were stuck with a car that was a front engine designed to work with an Audi engine, and it wasn't sporty at all. However, because the car had the gearbox mounted at the back, it achieved a near 50-50 weight distribution ratio and therefore handled better than all air-cooled 911s at the time. It was also the first Porsche to ever offer an automatic transmission, which was a 3-speed, and the 4-speed manual was from another front-engined car. And to top that off, the car only had anywhere between 95 and 110 horsepower during its lifetime, which isn't what you would expect from a performance car. The turbo version, however, got 170 horsepower, but those were very, very, very rare. But at the time, if you were looking for power and luxury from Porsche, you were probably leaning towards the 928. It was the only Porsche coupe to be ever powered by a V8 engine, and during its development, it increased its displacement from 4.5 liters to 5.4 liters. It was entirely developed by Porsche as a grand tour, as the company thought at the time that the 911 was losing interest and luxury sports cars would be the future. It did win European Car of the Year in 1978, beating the likes of BMW's 7 Series. It was the first sports car ever to win that title, truly acknowledging its advanced technology. Well, okay, bringing it back to the 924. Well, actually, this is the 968, but we're getting there. Can I just say that Porsche's history is one of the most complicated ever for a brand that's been producing cars that looked pretty much exactly the same? All right, back to the 924.
Too many people be calling my phone, but I never be picking it up. Got everyone that I need in my circle, I never be going and switching it up. Rocking with the people who been following me when I never thought it would have happened, and I never got love. Now they want to piggyback on everything I got, I never knew one from the bottom, but now I've had enough.
All right, So if you're a car fanatic, you will know that Porsche has been racing for years. The 924 in race trim entered its fair share of motorsport and was used to develop its successor, the 944. To put it short, it was an evolution, not revolution. The 944 had a closer weight distribution ratio at 50.8% rear and 49.2% front, and it was still fairly slow for a sports car with minor performance improvements over its predecessor. It is important to know that it was among the most successful sports cars in terms of sales in Porsche's history, selling 163,000 cars until it was beaten by the 986 Boxster and the 997 Carrera.
Woo! You guys still with me? I mean, why does everything have to start with a 9? 9 this, 9 that, 924, 968, 999. When you say it out loud, kind of get it. And that brings us to this car, a 1994 968. That's it. I mean, I know it looks like a Turbo S, but I'll explain that when we go over the exterior features.
The 968 came in where the 944 left off. It was actually supposed to be a heavily revised model of the 944, but Porsche went so far that it deserved its own model designation.
But unfortunately for Porsche, the 968 didn't sell as well as the 944. They only sold 12,776 models worldwide, and 8,111 of them were sold outside of North America. And yes, I do realize I have omitted variants, special editions, and all of that, but I did that just to keep my sanity in check.
The front was inspired by the 928 Grand Tourer and looked like a Porsche as we know them today, only with pop-up headlights that, well, aren't as cool as the ones you would find on an RX-7, for example.
Speaking of the RX-7, smash that like button right now, just if you want us to review one.
The rear of the car was also redesigned, featuring fully colored taillights, but nothing else. Pretty much remained the same as a 944.
The engine was a heavily revised 944 four-cylinder engine, but this time it had 3 liters of displacement, making it the 4th largest four-cylinder engine at the time. And when new, it developed 237 horsepower and 305 newton meters of torque. And look at it, it's massive. It had to be tilted to the side just to fit. It looks like a V8, but it's just a 4-cylinder. So when it came to performance, the car would accelerate to 100 kilometers an hour in just 6.5 seconds. And when it was fitted with the 6-speed brand new manual gearbox, it could reach a top speed of 252 kilometers an hour. You could also get a 4-speed Tiptronic automatic, but that was actually slower, back when automatics were slower than manuals. Forgot about those times. Now, if you are an avid Porsche enthusiast, you might notice that, wait, hang on a minute. This looks like a Turbo S. And you would be correct.
You see, the owner of this car has modified it to look like a Turbo S, but still has the non-turbo engine. But not for long, as it will be in this car in the near future, which is a feat on its own, because when it comes to the Turbo S, that produced 305 horsepower, almost 70 more than the standard car, Porsche only made 14 of them.
And now we get to the interior. It's pretty much the same as the 944 with a couple of updates with these switches and buttons and here and there. But it is a very nice interior. There's a lot of leather and it feels very 80s, and that's a good thing. I love 80s cars and this is no different. Everything works. It's got air conditioning. It has an aftermarket radio. I have ample headroom over my head here, as well as a lot of space just to fit in quite snug. Not so much with the 911s of the time, so as a daily driver or a classic car to have on the weekends, it fits nicely. And side note, the key is on the right side of the steering column, unlike most Porsches nowadays that have the key on the left. But that's enough talking, let's go and drive it. Something about a classic car, guys. Something about a classic car you can't repeat. I mean, reviewing all of the latest cars coming out nowadays, they kind of are in essence all the same. They're all really good, but they're all very lifeless. And it's only when you come into a car that has aged a little bit do you truly remember what they were like. Oh, listen to that noise. And a manual gearbox. This is real driving. I'm getting ahead of myself here, but it's so planted. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, the 50-50 weight distribution. I mean, it's close to that. It's not exactly that, but you can feel it. It feels so much better than an air-cooled 911 to drive. You could drive it quick, like a sports car. And yes, it doesn't have as much power and so on, but do you really need it? If it handles like this, the chassis is amazing. As you can hear, it's quite stiff, and you could probably see that through the camera. But it's not too stiff. It's not fake. It's not filled with electronics and all these do-goodies and airbags that weigh the car down and all of that thing. No. It's a thoroughbred. You can definitely feel that. Oh yeah. My favorite thing about this car is how it makes me feel. Right now I got the sunroof tilted open and there's a button that does it automatically. And you're just cruising. And every time you pass a window, you just look at yourself. How cool this car looks from the outside. I mean, I'm enjoying this on the inside, but I'm sure everyone else is enjoying it while it's driving by. Coming up to a corner right now and you really feel everything in the corner. You feel where the wheels are being placed. It is so refreshing compared to what you have nowadays. It's such a good drive. It feels so raw. It's like a go-kart. And it's also quite practical. I mean, I got a big window in front of me. I mean, you know, people didn't have backup cameras and sensors and all of that. So a car had to be semi-practical, unless you were a Lamborghini. And you can see it, you can feel it. There's no issues with placing the car on the road. I can see everything perfectly, front and back and out of the sides. The mirrors are massive, and there's a lot of space in the boot because Porsche put the engine up front. So not only is it easy to drive, but it's also easy to live with. As a weekend car, go somewhere to the south of France for a nice holiday, take a couple of suitcases with you. And that brings me to what I said at the beginning of this video. This is the best vintage Porsche you can buy. I know it's not a 911, I know it's not air-cooled, I know it's not a flat six, but oh boy, I mean, I'm not missing any of that. None of it! It just handles so well. What a blast to drive. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Daily Drives. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to smash that like button, as well as let me know down in the comment sections below what you think of the 968 and what is your favorite vintage Porsche. Is it a 911 or maybe something else? As well as finally, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and make sure you hit that bell notification button so you don't miss out on any future videos. That's it from me. Have a great day and take care. Oh yeah, downshift. Oh yes. Oh, I want to go again. I want to go again.